Okay, we are live. As you can see, for those of you who are expecting Mr. Ryan Michler this evening, I hate to let you down. I apologise. Ryan's not here. Um, and guess whose fault it is? Mine. So I fucked up, basically. And then rather than give you nothing, I thought I'd come out and deliver something at least. So, firstly, Ryan is a guy that I respect massively. He's a huge authority in the industry that I love. He's a avid kind of like supporter of masculinity, and he helps a lot of men. He's had 20 million people download his podcast. He's got over 500,000 followers across social media. So I was super excited to be speaking to him. I've worked hard to get Ryan on the podcast, and then I'll go make a real schoolboy error, get him mixed up in my diary. And I thought, rather than just kind of hide away, I thought I'll come out and talk about this because, and whether this will make it onto the podcast or not, I'm not sure. But I thought I'd drop out a little video because there's a few lessons to be learned here. And I think the whole world of social media and business, like we all share our wins, and not many of us share our fuck ups, especially embarrassing ones like that. You know, when you get an email from a guest who you respect, and he says, "Alex, like, where the fuck are you? I'm waiting," and then you realise, you think, shit, I've made a mistake here. And out of all the guests that I've spoken to, again, no disrespect to any of the guests I've spoken to because they've all been phenomenal, but I was particularly excited about this one. Fortunately, Ryan's a pretty cool dude. So he said, look, Alex, he said, because I emailed him and said, Ryan, I'm so sorry. I said, I've made some mistakes in my business before. I said, this could be one of the biggest ones. And he was like, nah, it's not. He said, you'll make bigger mistakes. Don't you worry. There'll be plenty more mistakes to come. So I thought I'd come out and just kind of like, I grabbed my pen after I did this and I made some notes about it because I like to learn from these mistakes, and I like to try and make sure they never happen again. But we all fuck up. And I think, like I say, just coming out and speaking about these, especially on social media, it might help people. And it might make you feel a little bit better because we're all human. We all make mistakes. And I think the fear of making those mistakes stops a lot of guys from ever really starting or trying, or they beat themselves up so much that they just don't recover from certain mistakes. And it breaks them down and they can't pick themselves up and they can't go again. And that's not good. So the first thing that kind of like struck me, like as soon as I found out that I'd made this mistake, my natural instinct was to reply to the email to Ryan and make up some amazing excuse, like the power had gone down or something terrible had happened. It was just a natural instinct. And then I stopped for 5 seconds. I thought, no, actually, just own it. Just be totally honest. Don't hide. Don't give Ryan any excuses. And just say it how it is. Be human. And own that mistake. It's exactly what I did. I shot Ryan an email back. I said, yeah, I've made some big mistakes, dude. This is one of the biggest. And he said, no, it's not. So he was cool as fuck. So that kind of like instantly, I think, maybe gained some of the respect back from Ryan. The fact that I was just honest and upfront. And he even said, you know what, Alex? He said, I've done it before too. And in fact, my very, very first podcast years ago, when I had the idea of starting a podcast, was with Kit DeWell. Now, Kit DeWell is a well-respected author published by Penguin. She's a friend of mine. And I almost didn't ask her because I'd never done a podcast before. And I thought she'll never agree to it. And I asked her. And she said, yeah, I'll do it. And I thought, shit, now I've actually got to deliver on it. So I remember kind of, Kit had come all the way over, travelled over to the place that we were recording it because it was in person then. And it went great. I was nervous. It was my first one with someone that I really respected. And I couldn't wait to get it out there. And I went to upload it. And I'd realised I hadn't hit record. So I did this very first podcast. And that was it. I didn't do another one for years. And it's kind of, I guess, just shown, like, if you don't bounce back and move quickly, like those kind of mistakes can cripple you forever and you don't really do much with them. So fortunately, I started another podcast. This would have been episode 35 tonight. And Ryan will be back in 2 weeks, which is great news to do the podcast. But yeah, there was another good example of another embarrassing, glaringly obvious mistake that I shouldn't have made, but they're there. So the second one is just like accept that any journey, whether it's health and fitness or business, is littered with mistakes. It's going to be littered with mistakes and setbacks. and challenges. And these mistakes are necessary, because if you think that this is where our experience comes from, and it's our experience that makes us, it's our experience that kind of like, all the lessons are in there. And if we're never open to these mistakes, if we're never open to these challenges, the adversity, the setbacks, the knocks, the embarrassments, then we're never really going to grow in terms of resilience, and we're never going to become wiser. And that means we're never going to get better. So I'm all about, this is why I called the project that I'm doing now the Better Man, because I believe that no matter what level you're at, you can always get better at something. So that should be the goal for every man, because if you're not getting better at something, then what the fuck are you doing? Do you want to get worse? Do you want to step back? Do you want to feel stuck? No guy I know wants to feel like that. So we're looking at these areas like, how do we become better? And now part of that process is accepting that you are going to fuck up and you are going to make mistakes. In fact, you'll probably make more mistakes than you will have victories. You'll definitely have a lot more losses than you will victories. I find that, and if you think about anything in terms of like growing business, like that's what a lot of sales work is. It's taking rejection after rejection after rejection for a yes. And unless you build the stomach and the guts and the fortitude to deal with that, then you're never going to get anywhere. And I think this is one of the biggest problems now for us men. We don't have the resilience that is required to do good things with our lives. Even though we desperately want to, we have that skill that's missing. And that's all it is, by the way. Resilience is a skill. Discipline is a skill. You have to practice it. So if you want to get stronger, you lie underneath a bench press and you lift that bar until you get stronger. But many men forget that you have to do something like that for your mental toughness as well. So you have to pick yourself up, and you have to dust yourself down, you have to go again, and you have to learn. And that's the kind of the next lesson. Like, it makes you smarter and it makes you more resilient when you fuck up, as long as, and this is the condition, as long as you go again. If you let these things break you, then you're finished and you accept what you've got. And the guys that I work with, they're not at that position yet. They want better. They want to produce good things in their life for themselves and for their family. And they realize that life is short. Another little note that I made here was about never getting complacent. So when we talk about complacency, this is probably the common theme that runs through health and fitness for men who start to get in good shape and then they take their foot off the gas. Now, there's a couple of things that I think happen here, and again, contributed probably towards the mistake that I made today. I think, one, when you're distracted. So, for example, with everything that's going on in the Ukraine right now, like my attention has been on that a little bit. I'm not a news watcher, but all of a sudden this has grabbed me, this whole Putin thing. I'm still trying to process how like one man can cause like such chaos in the world, and how humans can act and treat each other. It's just shocking. But it's stole my attention a little bit, and I think that can often result in complacency in other areas. So if you are all in on your business, for example, you can get complacent and you can stop giving attention to other areas of your life. Like we see this all the time in business owners who become out of shape, unhealthy. They've took their foot off the gas in that area, or their relationships, their business might be thriving, but everything else is falling to bits. So when distraction presents itself, I think it can allow you to take your eye off the ball, especially the basics. And the other thing is, people who get complacent are often, they know what to do, which is the frustrating thing. So when you become good at something and something becomes a habit and a routine, like health and fitness, because health and fitness is all about habits and routines. When you know what to do, that's when you can get complacent. So if you're not sure and you're hungry and you're thirsty and you're motivated, you don't often get complacent. You're in it, like your attention's on it. Like you don't get slack. You don't take your eye off the ball. It's when you know what to do. And again, another real common thing I hear is like, I know what to eat. I know what to do. I just don't do it. And it's nothing other than complacency. And I think when you're on a good run, things have been going all right for me lately. It's been tough, but you become complacent because you've got that knowledge. And when you have that knowledge, you have to make sure that you reinforce that every single day, because we can fall flat on our faces when we think we know it all, and we don't fucking know it all. You only truly know something when you do it. And these lessons, by the way, we always, you hear that phrase like, you learn from your lessons. No, you don't. Not always. You only learn from your lessons when you act differently. So if you keep repeating the same mistakes, you haven't learned your lesson. Not at all. And it will keep presenting itself until you do. And complacency allows you to learn, have those same mistakes thrown in front of your face all the time. So distraction is one thing. And like I say, the difference between knowing and doing. When you know something, you've got to be careful that you can still stick to that plan, because knowing doesn't get you a result. Doing does. And that's what you need to focus on. Another thing, again, just my last couple of notes here. Don't make the mistake bigger than it needs to be. So this is like a own it, learn it, and move on thing. I think, especially driven and ambitious men are guilty of this. Hands up, like, this is me, 100%. Could easily quite easily punish myself for these mistakes that I make and that I'm going to make in the future. And it's how long do you want to punish yourself for, and is there any benefit to that? So yes, we want to take the lessons. Yes, we want to make sure that we don't get complacent, we don't do it again. But like, how long do you want to beat yourself up for it? Do you need to keep replaying that mistake over and over in your head? And in the grand scheme of things, this is where, when you look around at the world and all the travesty that's happening, like, you realize that your mistakes are small fry often. They're not as big a deal as they are, especially not on the outside. No one else gives a fuck, to be honest. It's all in your own head. So like, I'll be doing this podcast now talking about this big mistake I'm making, and people will just be like, oh, it's a mistake. Like, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. And they're right. It really isn't. In the grand scheme of things, it's not. So yeah, don't let the mistake manifest into some monster. You've just got to kind of cut the head off the snake before it grows. And like you say, try and learn from it. And then the final one, just for anyone who feels super busy and overwhelmed right now, because my business is busy. I've got a lot of guys to look after. I want to do a great job. I want to have fun. I want to have adventure. I want to do a lot of things. So, I'm busy. And there's guys that I coach who have children and wives and businesses. So, they're busy. They're super busy. They've got a lot of plates to spin. But the take home here for me is, the busier you are, the more organized you must become. So I was chatting to a guy the other week, and he was like, Alex, you've got to remember, I'm busy. I've got a business and I've got kids. And I'm like, yeah, you have. Like, this is the reason to be more organized and prepared and to have good strategy. So if you're trying to wing it and you're relying on willpower and discipline, and you're super busy, if you think about what you're doing there, you're setting yourself up to fail and become more and more overwhelmed. So I agree. Anyone that has time as an issue, which time is an issue for all of us because it's finite, it's running out. That is your reason, not your excuse, to become more organized and prepared. So I have learned from this that, like, actually I can get myself a little bit more organized. Like, everything doesn't have to be chaos and running around. Chaos feels good at the time. Like, we all kind of, like, a lot of us will thrive in chaos because it's energy and it drives us to do certain things, but we don't always think in our best position when we're in chaos. Sometimes, a bit of reflection, stepping back before you attack your day, you're actually clear on what's in front of you and what you want to achieve, and you've got things in order. So if I'd have done that a little bit better today, I wouldn't have made that mistake. It was just all chaotic and exciting at the same time, but stressful and tiring and distracting. So anyone who's listening to this, who's busy as fuck, like myself, then that is your reason to get yourself organized, not your excuse not to do the work. And this is true of all cases. So, if you're wanting to go down the gym and train and eat well, get yourself organized, because that becomes easier then. Like, if you've got a strategy and a plan, like, those strategies and plans should make your life easier, not harder. So if I've got decisions to make all day, I don't want decision fatigue. I want to know what I'm eating today because I've got other things that I need to worry about. Whereas if I've got to make 3-4 decisions about what my next meal is, I'm just giving myself extra headaches. I'm giving myself increased odds that I'm going to make bad decisions, especially later on in the day when I become tired and my discipline starts to waver and my willpower starts to waver, which is true of everyone. Like, the further on the day goes and the more tired you become, the more likely you are to make poor decisions. So I try and set myself up each day, especially nutritionally and with training, where I don't need to think about that. It's prepped, it's ready, I know what I'm having, and I can place my energy elsewhere. So that's it for me. Like I say, whether this will make it into the podcast, it probably will. It's a short one. I just wanted to own it and just remind everybody that we're all human and we all fuck up and we all make mistakes. And the easy thing would be to, run and hide from those, bury your head in the sand, or you can just step forward and share some of these struggles with your friends, colleagues, followers, whoever it is, and it might help them feel a little bit better and realize that we're all human, we all fuck up. It's just about how you handle that and that it's okay and it's part of the process. So that's me done. Happy Wednesday evening again. Apologies for all of you who were expecting Ryan. He will be back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I apologize. I better get this one right. He really won't give me a second shot at that. Steve Robson, thank you for being man enough to say you fucked up and own it. Thank you, Steve. We do all make mistakes. And then Mr. Stu Kane, I'm just reading the notes here, by the way, for people who are just listening and not watching, Stu Kane also acknowledging how ownership is good. And I think this is something we can encourage all men to do, isn't it? It's, like I say, inside of the group that are in the Better Man, we celebrate our victories, but we're very open about our struggles and our challenges. And this is something I think we should encourage more men to do. Especially, like, social media is a difficult one because you don't want to be one of those people who's just putting out all of your shit on social media, victim mode mentality. You don't want to go there, but it's good to get a bit of balance where you go, look, this is what I'm doing. These are some of the mistakes I've made. These are some of the victories that I've had. This is what's worked for me. This is what hasn't, and so on. So I think it's good to discuss and to share. And like I say, we're all doing our best, and we're all going to mess up, and we're all going to make mistakes. But I think the real kind of indicator of where we're at is how we handle and bounce back from some of these situations. And a little bit of gratitude goes a long way here. Some of the people, who are in far worse positions or made bigger mistakes would probably listen to this and think, Alex, I'd love that mistake. It's no big fucking deal. So I think a little look around about what everyone else is going through, especially in our current situation with what's happening overseas. So anyway, thank you. Appreciate the comments. Have a great evening and